Hey family, welcome to part two of the testimonial. It was running a little long, but again, we're condensing almost 38 years into, this single testimony. And, we are, speaking about some things along the way and correcting some things along the way. So if you've seen part one, I pray that it's blessing you. I pray that, some things are starting to come to realization. I pray that it's touching your heart so that it encourages you to change. And I pray that it encourages you to understand that you're not worthless. You're not broken and, some dysfunctional individual. It's just that there were some things that took place in your life that you never pinpointed. And upon pinpointing these things, it will bring forth change in your life. So often we attempt to correct things with the way of the world instead of going into the things of Yah. And that is what is so important, family. So, and when I say the things of Yah, I always refer to, our Heavenly Father and, the Messiah as Yah and Yahshua. That's their Hebrew names. That's just what I prefer to call them. But, Yahshua, better known as Jesus, and, Yah or Yahuwah, Elohim means the Lord, our God, right? So, just for you to be familiar with that. But I'm all up in the scriptures, y'all. I'm in the word. The word is what carries me. The word is what sustains me. It is the word, y'all. So, in a big part of my healing and a big part of my change and transformation is because of the truth of the word, not the word that has been exactly pushed in church, not exactly the word that, is popular in the mainstream, but the truth in the fullness of the word. So again, I pray this is helping you because again, we want to break the chains of bondage in our life, y'all. We don't want to sit here in bondage. We want freedom. And one thing I even realized, even as I was kind of writing out my testimony, because I wrote it all out and then I'm like, okay, that's too much. But one thing I noticed that kept coming up was freedom, escape and freedom, escape and freedom. And the only way we could be free is through the word, because the word says who the Son sets free is free indeed. Do you see what I'm saying? And you shall know the truth and the truth will make you free. So it is through truth and it is through the Son. Hallelujah, that we are free, y'all. There is nothing else that can free you. There is no human, no man, no child, no job, no position, no car, no house, no status that can free you. The only thing that could free you is the truth of this word and the Son, Yahshua HaMashiach, or better known as Jesus Christ, right? That's what frees you. We're going to get back into it. I was talking about, my ex-husband, my first husband, because like I said, I've been married twice and I'm actually, a third time married. But this is to my current marriage. I know that's to the one you could probably see over there. My current marriage. I know that's the man that y'all brought into my life. I know that after that healing took place and after, I got to that place, that's who he had for me all along. Even as we are doing this video right now, he said, I'm going to pray and fast for you, my wife, because he said, I want this video to do everything that it is called and supposed to do. What a blessing. What a blessing. So I'm just so thankful that Father loved me that much. And again, you'll see the, all that is coming forward. But family, we got to trust. We got to trust and we got to follow the course and we have to seek healing and seek truth. We got to really seek truth because when we get the truth, we heal, right? And through that, our life begins to open up. Moving forward with the story or with the testimony, I went through a lot. There was a lot of challenges that I went through in my first marriage. I did. One, because I was broken and, I was a mess. I didn't even know me. And the reason why I got married was the wrong reason. And in entering into the marriage, it was the wrong reason. Everything about it was just out of order and incorrect. It was a marriage to save face. It was a marriage to prove points. And 4 wonderful children came out of it. And, I've learned a lot. We were in business. That's one thing I could say about, him and I. We handled business. So, we were in our 20s. We had money and, all these things. I was stay-at-home mom before that was even a thing. I worked from home before that was even a thing. You know what I mean? So we did a lot. There was a lot of damage. Not only, all I can speak of is the damage with me. I know that in my infidelity, I damaged him. And in his infidelity, he damaged me. We were damaging to one another. And one thing you got to understand is, when a relationship gets to that point where it's damaging, that's something you got to pray for deliverance from. Just because something's good, that doesn't mean it's good for you. So I'm not saying that he's a bad person, just like he can't say that I'm a bad person, because I'm absolutely not a bad person. It's just that we were not good for one another. And, as time progressed, I just realized that more and more. And he's not a bad person. He just wasn't good for me. He just was not good for me. And that's okay. I'm thankful for the experiences I've had, because I've learned a tremendous amount from him, and he's influenced me, and I've definitely influenced him as well. But yeah, you got to know when to bow out. And I realized it was a time. So, there were things that took place that transpired that broke the camel's back, but I prayed and I said, Father, deliver me from this. Deliver me from this. No, well, actually, I prayed that, things would get fixed, that things would get repaired. I was so far away from who I was. Like, I literally didn't even know who I was anymore. It was literally to a point I didn't know my coming from my going. I did not even know who I was anymore. That's how bad it got. I was in depression, drinking like a fish, honey. I used to take a bottle of wine to the head of night. Every day I used to just drink a bottle of wine, trying to escape. Having more kids, because again, sex. Sex is literally the only thing that kept us connected. Literally. Like, if it was not for sex, it was like, sex is the only thing that really kept us together. Because I wasn't even there mentally. I was in such anguish. I was so over it that I couldn't even, like, my body wouldn't even respond no more. I was just done. That's a terrible place to be. And it was probably the same way for him. It was just like going through the motions. And, I was like, this ain't how this is supposed to be, yo. Like, this is not how this is supposed to be. So when certain situations happened, I took it as an opportunity. When I was dabbling in, lesbianism, because I was just trying to escape. I just wanted freedom. I just wanted to feel like I was doing something. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I remember there was a female I was talking to. I used to go to her house, used to kick it, whatever. And she said, "You are a pushover." Yes, she did. She sure did. She said, "You a pushover." She said, because she had been to my house and she saw me and my ex-husband's dynamic. She's like, "You're such a pushover." She said, "You're such a pushover." She said, "Everything that's happening to you, you deserve it." That's one thing I could say about her. She kept it 100 with me. And I appreciate her. I do. Because I started to really look at myself. I really started to look at things. She said, you're allowing that. She said, he only doing what you allow him to do. You're a straight pushover, yo. And I was like, dang, it hurt. I was pissed at her. I was very upset. But where's the lie? Where's the lie? You know, and it's funny because I do a Bible, a scripture study every morning in my group, the Word Warriors Living Word Study. And, you know, we were talking about that. We were talking about like the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the elders and the chiefs. And, you know, when Yahshua came through with the truth and they used to get so angry. They said they were so angry they wanted to destroy them. We're currently studying the book of Mark. We was doing Mark 11. Now we're in Mark chapter 12. But, you know, they said they were so angry that they wanted to destroy him because he told the truth. So I was angry. I was not happy with her. I ain't talked to her for a little while. But I had to realize she is telling the truth. And I had to come to terms with the truth. And, you know, I started to, you know, his grandfather was a person that definitely influenced me too. Because, you know, when I was with him, I just like my soul was just, you know, I was just on some, you know, Jesus ain't real. And, you know, I just started getting into some other stuff. And his grandfather, I tell you, his grandfather really helped keep me grounded. Because no matter what we would say to him, he said, I don't care what you say. You will not dispute the validity of my God. He used to really go in on us. And he's like, you will not. So it was like his grandfather, that was like my heart right there. And he is the one that kept me from going too far. It's like, you know, y'all will put people in your life that will keep you from going too far. You know, and it's like I've always kind of been going there, but there was always something there that kept me from going too far. And his grandfather was that person for me. When I spoke to him and we would sit down, and because he was just such, we used to call him Mr. Miyagi. He was this little, he was so cute and little and had his little white beard and he was adorable. You know, he always sat down with me. Him and I had a very special relationship. He would sit down with me and, you know, I'm sure he kind of saw what was going on. He knew what it was. And, you know, he was like, come on, let's study. Let's study a little bit, you know, and then we would get together and we would study. We sit at the kitchen table and we would study and we would talk and, you know, and I love that because it felt like my grandpa again. Like I took his grandpa as my grandpa. Literally, it felt like my grandpa again. And that I cherished that. I cherished the moments I had with him. Because that's what I used to do when I was younger. You know, grandpa used to sit me down and we used to get in that word, you know, and he used to correct me on things and tell me what needed to be done. And even things with the children, he was like, don't say that, sweetheart. He always says, sweetheart, don't say that, sweetheart. You know, don't, just be careful what you say, you know. And then he always took it back to scripture and he kept me grounded, you know. Actually, I have the Bible that that we studied from after he passed away. He, you know, he gave that Bible to me. Well, you know, before he passed away, he gave that Bible to me and I cherish it, you know. But he really helped me. But fast forward, he knew what had to happen. And he had gotten sick and I took care of him till his last breath. I took care of him till his last breath. I was pregnant with my daughter. I know I'm kind of all over the place now because it's like, woo. I'm trying to bring it back in. You know, there were situations that happened with my ex-husband. And, you know, I just got to a point where I said, I'm done. I'm done. You know, with all those things that had been in my head, you know, all the things I knew I needed to do, all the things that, you know, the value, I was starting to realize my value. For a long time, I didn't realize my value. I was starting to realize my value again. And I got to a place I had actually prayed. I said, Father, I was like, I'm going to try one more time. And I said, if this does not work, I'm done. Lo and behold, I tried it. I tried one more time. I tried to give it my all to try and make it work. And it just didn't. I said, all right, I'm done. I said, enough said. I've done this for too many years of my life. I'm done. Right? And I let them just go on. I released them. And one thing people know about me, when I release something, it's bye. I release it. I really do. So I just released them. And at that point, I was pregnant with my daughter. This was my fourth child with him. I was pregnant with her. And, it was a very challenging pregnancy because I was alone a lot. But in that time, y'all blessed me to reconnect me with some people that were in my life from my past. At this point, I didn't know I was going to be going back home, because I was living in North Carolina at this time. After we got married, we had moved. And, I didn't know I was going to be going back to New York. But Father knows what he's doing. He orchestrates things. So he brought two people back into my life that were from New York. My very good friends that I grew up with. And, one of my exes. But with my ex, it wasn't exactly, and it was the one who was very intense, the one I was scared with, the 7th grade ex, brought him back. Yeah. So, we was talking, and you know what? Every morning he used to text me and check on me. Be like, are you okay? Is everything okay? Are you good? Just texting and check on you. Just checking on you. Just checking on you. And I was so thankful for that because I felt like nobody cared. I couldn't tell my parents what was going on. I had to uphold this image. And that's one thing that I always felt with that situation as well with my friend. I always had to uphold some image. I couldn't really express what it was. It's almost like, what happens here stays. I had to always smile it off as if things were okay and I was in utter chaos and hell. I was just tired. I was tired of living a fake life. I was just tired of it. It was mentally and physically exhausting. So I did the best I could. And, I dealt with a situation with a very close family member. This family member couldn't have gotten any closer. Dealt with a situation with that individual and, had to nurse them back to health. And, I was, my presence was in New York more and more. There were people that were in our life that saw the situations that were happening. And I had one of them, they said, you know what, we're going to New York, come with us. Literally, she said this to me. She said, pack your bags. We're driving up to New York. Come with us. You could spend time with your people. I needed that at that time. So that's what I did. And during that time, I was able to reconnect with, the people in my life. And it felt so good. Like, it felt so good to be home. It felt so good to be embraced. And sometimes you got to understand, like, we could be in environments. Come on, somebody. Sometimes we're in environments that make us feel like we're nothing. And we take that experience from that environment and then we encompass that or we equate that to our whole experience and our whole being. No, honey, it's just that environment. When you come out of that dysfunction and you come into a place where you are received, everything changes. So that's why we got to make sure that the environment that we're in, the environment that we in is an environment that enhances us, because I was in an environment that made it seem like I was not worthy. When I came out of that environment and when I went into an environment where I was loved and received, the whole thing changed. And I'm telling you, that was a life-changing weekend. That was Memorial Day weekend, 2014. I won't forget that. That changed something for me, because that's when I said, I am loved. I am worthy. I am respected. I am received. And from that point, they couldn't tell me nothing else. That's when I started making a plan. That's when I got my get up again. Sorry, I had to drink water. That's when I started to get my get up again. That is when things began to change. So now I started to make a plan. I knew that in a month I was going to be turning 30 years old. I was like, we got to make a plan. So I started to make a plan. I just started grinding. I just started working on me. And I'm like, no more of this foolishness. I'm like, I wasted enough time. You know what I mean? I'm going to let folk do what they do because ain't nothing I can do about what folk do. And I'm telling you something, family. And here's another side note. You can't change nobody. Folk is going to do what folk is going to do. And I don't care what you do. You could fall out, keel over, whatever. They going to do what they going to do. So what you need to focus on, and the only thing you can focus on, and the only thing you can ever change is what you do. So it's no need sitting around here worrying about, I don't understand why people do it that, and you will never understand. The only thing you can ever understand is what you do. So take responsibility for you. Take accountability for what you got to do to change yourself and to move forward into what's for you. So, and I began to do that. I began reading again. I began, looking into healing, right? I began to really unpack my life, right? Be like, how did I get here? Because you don't know, you can't get to where you need to go unless you first realize where you are. And I knew I was up at a place on the map that I was not trying to be. So I had to retrace my step and retrack my steps, right? To really say, how did I even get here? I said, this is a conundrum, honey. How did I get here? What took place in my life that got me to this place? And I really had to go back. And this is when I began to do this work. And it's amazing what I uncovered and discovered about, just about myself, about my life, about my pain, about my insecurity, right? So I started to do the work. Family, you got to do the work. Is that work easy? It's not. Does that work hurt? It does. You start to realize a whole lot of stuff about you. And it's some stuff that you don't want to see. It may be some stuff that's very painful. But let me tell you something. It is absolutely necessary if you want to move forward. So I started to do the work, right? I just started to reflect and he's doing his thing, whatever. I'm doing me. And this didn't involve, a whole bunch of dudes and stuff like that from when I was very pregnant, so I couldn't anyway. And I'm telling you, it's my pregnancy that saved me, because I would have been in jail for beating people up. It really was. It was by Yah's grace. My pregnancy kept me calm. My pregnancy kept me from. I'm telling you, because the stuff that was happening, it was just so outrageous that I'm like, yo, I just thank God I was pregnant, yo. I just thank God. I was so stressed out during that pregnancy. I really thought my daughter was going to come out handicapped. I really did. I was like, there's no way this child is going to be normal, because the amount of stress that I'm enduring and dealing with, it's just beyond what any baby can take. But to Yah be the glory. He gave me the perfect little girl. And every time I look at her, I'm reminded of the overcoming, the journey, the tenacity, and the determination that I had to be better. I heard I was having a daughter. That changed everything for me. I said, there's no way I can go into my life. I can go forward knowing I'm going to have a daughter. I will never want my daughter to do or experience the things that I did. I got to fix myself. You know, with my sons, that's one thing. And of course, you want to fix yourself with all your children. But I used to pray. I said, Father, please don't get, because I knew how I was. That's how messy I was. I knew how I was. I used to pray, God, please don't give me a daughter till I'm ready. And he did. And even her name means through the fire. So she is an amazing little person. And all my children are amazing. I love my boys, love my girl. I just love them all. But with her, I had to overcome So it just hit a little different. You know what I mean? I had to put on my big girl panties when I was pregnant with her. You know, I had to do a lot of stuff and pull some things up out of myself that I never even knew was there with her. So it just hit a little different, right? But you know, I went on and I was just working on me. I had my boy G, may he rest in peace. He you know, he used to check on me. I had my other, you know, from back in the day. He was checking on me. I'm like, yo, I'm checked for. I'm good. You know what I mean? It ain't even had to be no long. I ain't even had to do all that. I'm checked for. Do you see what I'm saying? So I am, you know, loved. And again, this is before I really came into the understanding of the truth of the word, that there's no human that can check for me the way Yah checks for me. There is no human that can love me the way Yah loves me and the way Yahshua loves me. This is before that, but this was leading me into it. Do you see what I'm saying? So, you know, I just made the determination. I'm like, you know what? I'm going back home. I'm moving back. I got to leave. I got to go. I was like, I can't be here in this. I can't be here in this, you know, in this environment, because this environment is going to kill me. Right. I remember Yah even saying, I was in the laundry room and I was like really down that day. And I remember it was like, it was so clear. God was like, if you stay here, you're going to die. I will never forget it. It was like the softest voice. Like, if you stay here, you're going to die. Now, I didn't know if he meant physically die or die spiritually, but the word die was enough for me. I said, I got to get out of this environment. Right. So I called my parents and I told them what it was. I said, look, y'all, it is some really crazy stuff happening. I got to go. So I'm going to be moving back home. That was a very hard call to make. That was a very hard decision to make. But I knew for my life, for my sanity, for my peace, for my breakthrough, for me to become who I knew I was created to be, I had to do it. You know, I had to leave it behind. I had to leave some stuff behind. And man, you know, it hurt me to the core because I was moving back into my parents' apartment. So it ain't even like I had a whole lot of space and things like that. So I knew I couldn't take my children. I knew I wasn't financially stable enough to take them. So the only one I was able to take was my daughter. I had to. She was a baby, you know. But you know, I knew that through this situation that Yah would reconciliate anything that needed to be done. And I said, Father, I trust that because it's you who told me this needs to be done, that whatever needs to be repaired in the future, you will repair it. You know, sometimes you just got to take that faith move. There's people that told me I was absolutely stupid. I'm a horrible mother. How can you do that? This and this and this. I've heard it all. But I knew what I had to do. And I praise Yah that I did it, because I'm telling you, that move saved and changed my life. So my daughter was born, and you know, my ex-husband's grandfather had eventually passed away. He passed away 2 months after my daughter was born. And I remember Yah saying to me, like, once his grandfather passed, that I was released. It was so, like, I knew I had to see granddad through to the end. That was mine. That was my thing to finish. And I saw him through to the end. He, had health complications, and I saw him through. I cleaned him, cooked for him, hospice, all the doctors, all that stuff. I was there, and I, to his last breath, and he said, "You're my angel." And he said, "You will always be my angel." And I never forgot those words. We had a very special connection, him and I. And, he said, "I'm ready to go home." I remember when he said it, he told me, he was like, "I'm ready to go home. I don't want to be here anymore." And, a couple of days later, he passed. I was actually going to visit a friend that I hadn't seen in a long time, a homegirl that I used to work with. And I was like, I'll be back. Okay. Just, be good. And, somebody had came to stay with him while I was gone. And I went to the gas station up the block, and that wasn't even 3 minutes away, literally. And then I get a call, and he said, granddad passed away. So, of course I went back, and then, the arrangements were made, and I made the arrangements for him to be picked up by a funeral home and things like that. But, I knew I was released at that point. I had finished what I started. So after that, the plans were moving forward to, move back to NY, and that's where deliverance took place. I was, moved forward. I ended up getting a job where, because honey, all I had was my car and a few little possessions. I had nothing, I had not much of nothing. I honestly didn't even want to take much. I was like, yo, I just want to get out of here, man. So I know this has to move forward. I took I got a job, worked for a chiropractor once I got up there. And this position changed my life because it connected me with the people who brought me to help bring me to Yah. And I'm forever thankful for those individuals. And it was a young man, 7 years younger than me, that brought me and mentored me in the word. Hallelujah. And because of him, my life has never been the same. And, I got up in this word, and, I started to break chains, and, because I started doing the work when I was still, in North Carolina. And then I came home, and it's like all of that, began to come into play. And plus the chiropractor's office I was working with, he was very much on personal development. I'm telling you, I know that job was divinely sent my way. He's very much into personal development. So we used to just watch personal development videos all the time. Always watching Tony Robbins, always watching Les Brown, always telling us quotes and just developing us. Like that was a big part of his practice, developing his staff, and he had he had phenomenal growth in his practice. And a lot of the patients, I got cool with them or whatever, and I was invited to church. And he was like, it's going to be on Sabbath. And I'm like, what, you a Jehovah's Witness? I remember that was the first thing I said. And he was like, no, I'm SVA, but, just come and check it out, And I came, and man, it was like family. It was like family. It's like, I knew that's where I was supposed to be. And that's when I really started to learn the word. I really can't front. I really started to learn the word. I was in church my whole life. I grew up Baptist. I was in church my whole life and never understood the word. And I think that's a problem for a lot of us as a people. We've been in church our whole life, but have no understanding of the word. I literally started to get an understanding of the word, and change started to break off my life. Deliverance started to take place. I used to drink like a fish. I mean, I knew the drink specials for every night of the week. And I used to drink. And I used to go to, there was a supermarket called Harris Teeter. And they have a huge, massive wine section. And I used to get a bottle of wine and drink a whole bottle to myself almost every night. And I got delivered from alcohol. And I got delivered from smoking weed. And I literally haven't, it's been years. And, I've been delivered from those things. And, I praise Yah. I praise Yah because that was my crutch. Like I almost couldn't function without those things. And, the truth of Yah, began to reign in my life. And I got delivered from those things, y'all. And it was like almost overnight. It was almost overnight. Like I wanted it one day, and then the next day I didn't even want it no more. And then it came to the point where if I tried to drink, it would hurt my stomach. Like I couldn't even take it no more. My body couldn't even, it rejected it, because it's like I was a new creation now. I ended up getting baptized and, things like that. And, I was just so on fire for the Most High, but I'm going to move forward into the next person that was brought into my life. And we're going to just call him AA. He was brought into my life, and I met him on the bus, and because I had my car and all that stuff, and I got promoted at the chiropractor job and all that stuff, and then things began to change because there was new management that was there, and then it was beginning to affect, affect me spiritually, because this new management wanted me to lie. They wanted me to kind of, finagle numbers and things like that, because I was promoted to a manager myself, and then this was the manager over the managers. And I was just like, nah, I can't do that. And then I just saw things change and the whole dynamic changing. And, I said, Father, I can't do this. You know what I mean? It was taking all my time. I didn't have time to be with my daughter. I was just working all types of crazy hours. And I was like, nah, I can't do this no more. And, I resigned. Now, everyone thought I was absolutely crazy and nuts, because they're like, girl, you had a good job. Like, what are you doing? Like, but for me, in the way I've always been, it's not about the money. It's about my peace, yo. Money cannot buy my peace. And I know that is like, everybody got their priorities. My priority was my peace. So I ended up leaving, and Lord knows I went through it financially. My car ended up breaking down, and I started going through it financially. And, I was on the bus. I was going to someone's house to do their hair, one of the sisters from the church, and I was coming home, and, I was like, man, I'm tired. I need help. I just felt like everything was just collapsing on me. I was like, it's just too much to handle by myself. And, y'all said, I'm gonna have someone help you. I really remember that. I felt alone. I felt vulnerable. At this time I'm celibate because I got delivered. So I got delivered from the whole sex situation. I got delivered from that. And I was celibate for over a year. It's first time in my life since being introduced to the sex, that I was celibate. And I embraced it. And it was beautiful because I got to know me for me. And, I just started breaking those strongholds and those chains, and, that feeling of having to be loved by a man, and, things like that. I knew the love was coming from the Most High. And that's how I knew that I was healing. That's how I knew I was healing. Telling you, family, the work is necessary. Reading the word is necessary, because that's where you gain the truth. And again, when you know the truth is what makes you free. So I was able to be freed from those demons that I had, y'all. I'm telling you, this is real. So I was able to be freed from those demons. And, AA was brought into my life at the right time, because I wasn't depending on him for certain things. I just knew that we had some things, that Yah brought us together. He brought him into my space for a reason. The day we met, it was very spiritual. I knew that it was, there was a reason. And, because there's just no way, the way we met, that it could have happened without divine intervention. Let's just say that. We start to, date. He's an activist. He was very much in the community. He had a past. And in his past, it involved, him, being incarcerated. And he actually used to help, the gentlemen, that were dealing with this situation and dealing with trouble in the streets or whatever the case may be, helping them to heal. So he was a speaker, and he, conducted meetings. And I just thought that was so dope. I'm like, yo, that's my thing right there. Brother, that was loyal. Let me tell you something, loyal to a fault. He was loyal. He was a protector. See, this is the first time I've ever seen this. You know what I mean? He was a protector. He, so much so, like, even we walked, he always had me walk on the inside, and, just protector of the mind. He was a protector of the physical. He was a protector. That's what he did. He was like a man, right? Learned we were from the same town, whatever the case may be. He's 17 years older than me. So he was older. And, I go to the meetings with them and, just sort of work that he did and how much he was respected. And what he did, it was, he tried to help people understand. It wasn't like, it was just so different from what I was used to. It wasn't about him getting his way. It was about helping people find the way. Oh, hallelujah. Hallelujah. It wasn't about him getting his way. It was about helping people find the way. And that really just encouraged me. So we became known, and I used to be, on the street. I used to talk to the homeless and, pray with them and, speak to others. And I know Father had took my car away for a reason. He told me he was going to take it when it did, when he did. But him taking my car made me more connected to people. When you're in a car, you just going where you need to go and you just are out of touch. But when my car was broken down, I had to be at the bus terminal. I had to be around people. I had to be on the bus. I had to do all this stuff. So it connected me to the community again. And then with that happening prior to meeting AA and then him doing what he did, man, people saw us as this like, this activist couple, like, it was awesome. So, we start to move forward and, my parents, it wasn't really my dad because he wasn't home most of the time. My mom, oh, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And I just started getting grief. I started catching grief. And I'm just like, oh, I was on my own for so long. I was like, maybe it's time for me to move on and, move out for my sanity, for her sanity, for everybody's sanity. Let me just, move out. So I move out and I move in with AA. We're in a relationship at this point, and mind you, this is like a year and some change after I left North Carolina, whatever. And we're in a relationship, so we begin to have sex. And but this was different. I said, Father, I know that marriage is typically in the human realm, it's marriage certificates and weddings and stuff. I was like, if this is who I'm married to, I'll do that. So I operated as such with him. Because I said, I know I had sex and I understood in the word that once the two people came together, that was considered a marriage. Right. So I said, I'll operate as such in the situation. So, I operated as that. I operated as his wife. I hadn't, because I knew I took responsibility for what I did, and, we're moving along, but then, he begins to have some issues with health. And, this takes a lot. It was taking a lot from him. And one thing that Father helped me to understand is that, I would be caring for him. Like I knew this from early. I didn't know exactly what was happening, but I knew I would be caring for him and I knew this would be different and it wasn't going to be a typical type of marriage, if you will. So he begins getting really taken down by his health condition, and he could no longer do the things he was doing. He couldn't do the activist work and all that stuff anymore. And I know that really hit him because he loved it. He really loved it. It was like it was who he was. And so of course, things began to change with us, and gotta have patience and things like that. We're moving through, and I'm trying to, just stay aligned with the Most High, keep His spirits up, and all this stuff in the process. And and issues started coming up where we were living at the time, and so we got displaced for a while. I ended up moving back to my parents' house for a couple of months. And, I was relieved. I was relieved because I was able to, focus on me again. I got drained from trying to pick him up from his slump. And, we took a break for a couple of weeks. But at the end of the day, I knew I had a responsibility to Yah because that's what he had told me, right? So we got married. And we knew we needed to find a place because when we got married, we still hadn't found a place yet. So what ended up happening is one of his boys, because AA knew everybody, one of his boys had, domiciled or took possession of a property using adverse possession. Now, this is the thing in New York, so it was a property, it had multiple, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom units in it, but this property was abandoned. I mean, it was ripped, right? But his friend was fixing up the units and, he said, hey, if y'all want one, well, let's do it, so, I prayed about it and, y'all gave the go. It just made sense, so we proceeded to fix up this abandoned property, so that we could, have a place to live. That was a very, that was a very bold move on my part. Like, this was the beginning of boldness. This was like, me doing those things that just did not make sense to others. And I got talked about and all those things. But let me tell you something, when, after it got cleaned up and we got the garbage out and, fixtures and certain things were replaced, let me tell you something, we made that place home, right? So right before we moved in, right, because it took about 2 months to get the place fixed up. So I lived still with my parents for about a month and a half, 2 months while we were getting things prepared, to move into this place. And, I'm at work because, I'm working as a waitress. I just didn't want to be I was working these jobs, because, I had gotten another job and, it was stressful. And I was just tired of being in places that stressed me out. I just wanted freedom, y'all. Like, I guess the way I was just flowing in my life, I didn't want nothing to control me. I wanted nothing to control me. And, so I went back to waiting tables. That was my backup. Like, whenever something went down, I waited tables because I knew I could get that quick money. I was getting cash money. When a lot of people look at servers or waitresses and servers as a negative thing, but I made money. I used to make more money waiting tables than I did working full 9 to 5s. Like, I knew how to get that money, right? So I went back to waiting tables. I was at work and I knew AA had a doctor's appointment. So, I was like, all right, I'll just scoop him up after I was done with my shift. It was going to be a short shift. I get a call in the middle of the shift and, the doctor's like, you need to get him to the hospital right now. They said it's a life or death situation. You need to get him to the hospital right now. We already, did intakes for him to be prepared to get to the hospital. You need to get him to the hospital now. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? And mind you, we are preparing to move, right? And we've only been married for like 2 months. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? But then I remember when Yah says you're going to be caring for him. So I was like, okay, we're going to see what's going down here. We're going to see what's happening. And lo and behold, he had to have an emergency open heart surgery. His heart literally was not even functioning at a capacity that could support his body anymore. So he had to have an emergency open heart surgery in order to implant some equipment into his heart in order for it to beat. This was a major, major surgery. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to think. All I could do was pray. It was like, wow, this could have meant death for him. So I was so I was I just didn't know what to think. I'm like, here I am, we put all this work and we just got married, and it's a possibility that I don't have my husband anymore. I was just like, Father, what in the world are you doing? But yeah. So he has this surgery a few days later. He's admitted and he has this surgery a few days later. And, praise Yah. I mean, it was a sight. It was a sight. But he made it. He made it. He was a fighter. He made it. And, it took him about a month and a half to recover. So, at this point, I moved out of my parents' house. I'm getting everything together for the house now because, mind you, we have all the fixtures and everything, but the furniture and all this stuff. And it's not like we had a lot of furniture and things like that. But, my bookshelves and my desks and, taking things apart. And, luckily his friend was there. So he helped me with a lot of things, praise Yah. But getting certain things together, getting things built. So I'm building everything. I'm hanging curtains. I'm putting together shelves. I'm getting things arranged. I'm setting up my daughter's room, having to bring things up. I mean, it was arduous. Between having to do that and getting our house together, still having to, take baby girl back and forth to daycare, still having to work and going to the hospital every single day. Right. So it was a lot at that moment in time, but, finally things, kind of came together where I got the home together. So I was able to, just kind of, flow, you know what I mean? I got my notes because I just want to stay on track. So, he was in the hospital for like a month and a half. There was a lot of things I had to attend because I had to learn how to care for this device, and assist him in these things. So lots of appointments, and, therapy and all these things. And, it was nonstop, but Yah is so good because he literally set us up for this. I'm telling you, family, he told me I was going to be a caretaker. He told me this. And by us moving into this place, we were rent free. I couldn't imagine if we lived in a place where we had to pay rent. We would have been on the street. But Yah knew what was going to happen. He knew the events that were going to take place. I'm telling you, our Father knows the beginning from the end, y'all. So he knew the events that were going to take place. And we were blessed to be able to have a full, basically, house. It was 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. The spot was big, and my decorating skills, I hooked it up. Yeah, I really did. So when he came out of the hospital, he had a comfortable place to come home to. And, we were rent free for like over a year, like 14, 15 months, because Yah just knows what to do. I'm telling you, he is so phenomenal. So he's recovering, he's getting his strength back, but because of all these appointments, I was missing a lot of work. So I had the car, we had gotten a car and things like that, but it got repossessed. I came out of work one day and, I was like, yeah, I made good money that day too. And I was like, yeah, I'll come out to the car. Ain't no car there, y'all. They done found the car. That joint got repossessed. So I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. So I had to, go and figure it out. I went, I got my things together, whatever, figured out how to get my daughter, whatever, and we headed on back to where we were staying, which was about, because I was working in Long Island at the time, but we was living in Queens. So, it was a commute. So I had to, do that and rock that out with baby girl. But, this is what I knew. I know that when Yah takes, there's something that he's trying to get my attention. And it's almost like, AA was home now. I didn't have to go back and forth to the hospital, so I it's like he wanted me to get involved again. I know he had me, and one thing he had me doing is he literally had me speaking on the buses, y'all. I remember him saying, and it was so clear. He said, "How can you speak in front of in front of thousands of people when you can't even speak in front of a full bus?" I remember that being said to me. And I'm like, you know what, Father, whatever I got to do. So now he's pulling boldness out of me now. So I literally used to get on the bus, stand in the front. No, this is the public transportation taking you where you need to go. People catching the bus on the street, the bus. He has me give a message every morning when I'm on the bus. Like, so much so that people are looking for me now. So I gave a message of encouragement. I stand in front and I give a message of encouragement. There was those who didn't listen, but there were a lot of people who did. And, I became more and more confident in my speaking. And I remember there was a man who like broke down crying. He got delivered on the bus. It was just so beautiful. People came around him. He was crying. He got consoled. I guess he was going through so much. And, he got delivered. So we stayed in touch with him and, gave him resources and, people saying, hey, this is literally what I needed today. And I was having a bad day and you helped me to, get through the day. And, it was just so many wonderful things that were coming out of it, living in the boroughs, because I lived in Queens, that's one of the 5 boroughs in New York, living in the boroughs, it was easier to get transportation going home and things like that. So I was able to catch the bus home anytime, it was no big deal. And it was quick, so, this is what, I became used to. And, this is what we had to do. So Yah wanted to use me. He wanted to use me and I allowed him, y'all. And this is the thing, like, y'all, when you're being called, he gonna call you to be bold. And even as I'm doing my study with, my group in the morning, Father uses the bold. It is the bold that gets things done. So if you want to make some changes in your life, honey, it is time to be bold. And it is time to not give a hoot and a holler what anybody got to say. Were there people who laughed at me? There was. But there were people that were moved and touched, and, people used to just call me woman of God and all these things. And, I don't be getting all into the titles. I don't do all that. I just want to serve. I just want to be obedient. Right. So I forgot Billy Alsbrooks. He said it. He said the world belongs to the bold. So Father was making me bold because he knew what he was preparing me for. Hallelujah. So, after about a year, things start falling apart. I'm not going to say falling, but things get challenging with that spot we staying in, right? Because again, it was an adverse possession. So, literally the people that said they own the property, they were starting to say, hey, we want our property back. We were essentially squatters. I mean, it's crazy. But it served us well. So it was like, you know what? It's time to go. It served its purpose because now we had to start going to court and stuff and things like that. So it was like, all right, it served its purpose. So, we were led to move back, led to move to North Carolina. And I was so ecstatic because I'm like, you know what? I get to be with my babies and, all this stuff. And, I'm like, we're going to reestablish life. Right. So, we moved to North Carolina and, we don't have much. I rent a pickup truck, pack everything that we had. There's so many things we had to give away, because by this point we accumulated a house full of stuff, but, we didn't even have the bread to rent a U-Haul. We had to, I literally found a pickup truck on, Expedia, something like that. And we packed everything we could in that pickup truck. And, we headed on down the road to North Carolina. And, for a couple of months, we had to stay in the extended stay because we didn't have the money to, get the spot. So, praise y'all, financial breakthrough came along and we were able to get the spot. So, now we have our spot. Was working on my credit before I left New York, so I was able to get another vehicle, and now, things were seeming to come together. We were coming together, and I was like, all right, now we're stable. We're moving to the spot. We get our things together. I'm like, all right, now we're stable. Now you really got to focus on your health now. You really got to focus on your health, because we was eating a little crazy, because again, we was living in the hotels and extended stay. We had stove and stuff, but it was still challenges, right? And I'm like, look, we got to get it together. I don't need you dying, right? So we need you to stay on top of your stuff so that, we could continue to move forward, because I'm like, yo, we worked too hard. And a lot of it fell on me. I'm not going front. I'm the one who got it together. I'm the one who got the car. I'm the one who got the job. I'm the one who got the spot. I'm the one who got everything, because there wasn't much he could do because of his condition, right? So, I'm like, I'll be daggone if I work this hard to get here, because I'm like, I got some stability again. Like, I've been living in abandoned places and parents' houses and all this crazy stuff, and we finally got to a place where I got some stability, and I'll be daggone if you just kick the can and throw this thing all off. You know what I mean? I was just like, look, we got to work together to make this thing work, because we don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. I was ready to move forward in my life. But he just didn't want to change, y'all. He just did not want to change. And, this created lots of issues. We were arguing and things like that, because again, everything was falling on me. He just wanted to do what he did. And it's like, bruh, we got things to maintain. And, plus he was working a very laborious job, because he had a background, and, he couldn't just get a regular job. So he could only go to these temp agencies and these type of things and get these, day jobs. But he got one that was pretty steady, but it was so labor intensive. I used to be like worried, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this man, it can't be doing all this. And plus he wasn't taking care of himself right, so I was just bothered. I remember just being bothered and stressed out and frustrated. I'm like, Father, we got to do something. I'm trying to move to higher heights, because, this was 2019. I'm like, yo, we going into a new decade. That's all that was in my mind. I'm like, yo, I want to be straight for this new decade. You know what I mean? Like, I want to go into this new decade with a boom, with a bang. You know what I mean? And, I would cry out and I would pray, and I'm like, Father, something got to give. You got to change him, change the situation, but whatever. And, and I said, I can't leave, I'm not going to leave him. I'm like, if anything, he would have to leave me, but something got to give. We had a huge argument one day, and I remember him saying, you know what, I can't do this anymore. Literally, I had prayed probably, like we had a couple of nights before. I had prayed, because I prayed all the time, but I really prayed, excuse me. And we had this big argument, and we really didn't argue like that. We didn't. He was like my boy. Like we didn't argue like that, but this was a big argument. And because I always respected him, and I said, I don't want to be arguing. I remember what my past life was like, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. So we always talked, and we would have disagreements, but we didn't argue. This was an argument. And he said, you know what, I can't do this no more. And he said, I'm moving out. So he literally starts looking and moving out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, are you serious? And that hit hard, y'all. That hit hard. And I'm like, here we go again. Click on the final video of my testimony to find out how my life will change forever. You don't want to miss it. Any way you are led to support this ministry is appreciated. Let's work together to uplift others so they too can become everything they were created to be. All the ways to give are in the description box below. I'll see you in the next part.